Hello everybody, this is Snarist, and I'm back again with my Eternights Pure Phillip Challenge Run. This is the second part, and it's called Act 3. And this is where the game starts to open up and be a little bit more challenging without upgrades. Because compared to my Expert Mode walkthrough of Eternights, I had a bunch of upgrades, but nothing too crazy, and in this you're going to start to see the effects of that. Now, technically a lot of Act 3 is pretty simple as far as the story mission goes. The affected Duelist is definitely going to be a bit of a challenge. He'll take a lot more punishment than he normally does. Act 4 is the real challenge, but if you remember me saying before, I'm only going to worry about doing Min's companion quest because I chose her as the romance that I wanted to end the game off on. Not only that, but I also think that her companion quest encounters when it comes to the combat are the hardest, and you're probably wondering why I'm not bothering doing any of that for Yuna or Seer, which could have technically filled out my time, and I could still do the whole, I use them to break barriers, but I deliberately stay away from using more than one elemental burst at a time with them. Well, I found that their combat encounters were not only a lot easier than Min's, but I also found that because they're far from the hardest challenge that the game has, I didn't want to overly complicate it. And it's just in the interest of saving time as well, because this isn't going to be a very long series. And there's a reason for that, because when you cut out all the dialogue, when you cut out all of the gameplay sections that doesn't really affect the sort of challenge run that I'm trying to do here, well, you'll find you don't have much of a game left over. So thankfully my fight against this mini-boss here that I've called the Puppet Master goes much more smoothly than it does in the last part. So moves that I can't perfect dodge, I manage to dodge normally, or if I miss the first attack, I manage to get a perfect dodge on the second attack, as I still haven't taken any damage. And at the beginning of the fight, the main difference here is that I made a perfect dodge, but technically what I should have been doing is staying away from them as much as possible, because in the beginning, for those first 30 seconds, you can't actually do anything to hurt it, so you're better off staying away. And I take a nasty hit there, but thankfully its barrier is now broken, and so we're in the home stretch. So there's a couple of big attacks that this Puppet Master can do that can finish me off with the current health that I have, but most of its attacks will bring me very, very close. So the strike can knock it down pretty easily, but then it gets into an immediate recovery as soon as you do that. But thankfully now that the barrier's gone, when it does multiple attacks in a combo, if you get the perfect dodge and you smack away at it, it'll get interrupted, so you can get your combo off and get the strike on. So you just need to make sure you perfect dodge consistently, and then you'll be right. Then get the elemental burst off, knock it down, get the strike on. Try to stay away from that move. That move there can be perfect dodge, but he's going up against a bit of a wall, or something that I might get clipped on, so I want to be careful. And this is pretty much the end of this fight. And then what it'll go into is the beginning of the story mission. We'll be going through the outer quarantine section here, into the hospital, and then into the hospital itself. And the quarantine area is not really all that bad. The hospital isn't that bad, a cut from maybe one room or two. Otherwise, yeah, the infected duelist is the real challenge of this. Especially since you can't use any sword skills as a panic to give yourself iframes and protect yourself. You can't stun him, you can't slow him down with frost. So it isn't until that boss fight that you really start to see just how careful you need to be, and how on the ball you've got to be as well. Now I mentioned in my previous walkthrough that I think it was Epic Store, because it was part of the Epic Store as well, or it eventually got there. The Studio Psy put out a little notice saying that the game had 9 million plus downloads in its time being released. I don't know if that's true or not, but given what little I've heard from the game and by the gaming community at large, the only people that have really touched on this game are streamers, and at most it's just in the single digit thousands at most that have covered this game. So it seems like this game is quite well put together and decently popular amongst people just locally, but when it comes to mainstream attention, it doesn't really get it, and I think that's a real shame. I do think it's another one of those games that is technically classified as an indie, because it was part of an Indie Game Awards back in 2023. But I would say because it went from indie to being picked up by a studio with a bigger budget, with full voice acting, music, and all that, I'd say it's more aligned with a AA game. It's sort of a lot like how last year they had the awards, and if you remember, Expedition 33 was nominated for several awards, including Best Indie Game, and I thought, if I can just look at that game and know it's not indie. But it just goes to show, doesn't it? Like, I look for hidden gems wherever I can, whatever works for me. I'm surprised I like this game as much as I do, but I mean, how sad is it that we used to come from a time where we had consistently good games coming out every single year? Like, there's a lot to choose from. Like, for me, let's see, what's a good year for me? I mean, I suppose 2011 was a pretty good year, wasn't it? We had all sorts of great games. When it came to horror, we had Amnesia: The Dark Descent. When it came to like superhero sandbox stuff, we had Infamous. And then we had Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. A lot of people felt that was when the franchise was beginning to take a bad direction, but I don't think so. I think that started with Advanced Warfare. Maybe even with Ghosts. But, we also had... what else did we have? I'm pretty sure there was something else, but I forgot it. But 2012, we had all sorts of great games too, like Black Ops 2, Spec Ops The Line, Far Cry 3. That's a big one for me. I mean, I know it doesn't sound that much, does it? Like 3 games or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But there are more games that I am forgetting. I'm just kind of talking out of my ass right now. But, I even felt that last year was a big disappointment for me. Because how bad is it when I look back at all these games that I played in 2025, and I can't name a single one of them that's even worthy of a 9 or an 8. Like, my game of the year for 2025 was Ninja Gaiden 4, and I could only give that a 7. I love the game, and I have a hard time putting it down and stop playing it, but I have to admit that when you factor in all of the best and the worst that game has to offer, you put my own bias aside, and ultimately, yeah, that game is very good and well put together, but it's not great. And to go from that to my second favourite game that year, which was Dispatch, I enjoyed the writing in Dispatch and the characters and everything. It does have a fair bit of cringe dialogue and has a lot of stuff in it that, personally, I'm getting sick of seeing in games. But ultimately, this was one of the rare few exceptions where you got a game that's vaguely woke, but is still competently put together enough, and none of that stuff is ever really brought up or made to feel unnatural. It's a lot like how you get the odd TV show or even the odd cartoon where that sort of thing comes into play, but because they just treat it like it's normal and they don't try to demonize one side or the other, making some sort of political message. Yeah. By the way, this is one of the rooms I talked about that could be difficult, just using my elemental burst to immediately kill one of these things and then using my perfect dodge at the right time to start wearing this thing down. And thankfully my timing was very, very good so that I can just finish it off. And even though it's a bit of a waste to use the elemental burst, I just wanted to get it over and done with, because I hate those enemies. Yeah, as I was saying before, besides Dispatch, there were a few other games I enjoyed playing last year, like Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, although I think the black version of the game, even though it looks really good, it doesn't quite hit the same as, like, say, like Sigma or the original. Not even Sigma, actually, no. It's a bad example. But there was also Dying Like the Beast, which, apart from all of its problems, I still felt like it was a proper return to form for the series. Dying Light 2 I didn't enjoy very much. But, yeah, I mean, even back in 2024, I had my list completely skewered and messed up, because Space Marine 2 ended up being my favourite game of the year for 2024. But I look back on it and I'm like, I wish I could take that back and give it to Black Myth Wukong instead, to move it from second place to first place. Because that game was well put together for what it was, whereas Space Marine 2, when you really break it down, there's some pretty glaring inconsistencies in the lore. For the most part, it's fine, and I think the game plays well enough and looks great, but yeah, ultimately, when the story and the campaign's over and done with, you got a multiplayer mode that died very quickly, and they refused to properly patch it, and the servers were all shit, so everyone just started playing Operations mode, and when they played Operations mode, well, it got very repetitive, and it took them a whole year to implement the prestige mode. By that time, I was already trying to level up the other guns to their top levels, and while that was happening, all my classes were at the top level, and I would have loved to have leveled them up slowly while going back and leveling up all the classes. And it took them, I think they're adding a Tech Marine class right now, so it's taken them a year and a half to get around to that, like one whole class. I mean, it just sounds pretty fucking backwards to me. Anyway, I'll stop talking about that. This is serious now. This is the infected duelist. Before, I just kind of, I was nearly dead, but you don't have to fight him straight away. You gotta wait till the others turn up before you can fight him properly. Because you're technically with Seer, and she can't break this guy's barriers. You need Min for that. So run away from these attacks here. This tracking attack he does with the lightning bolts, avoid that, but make sure you're prepared to dodge this attack when he starts coming back down again. Get your hits in. Wait for the stinger where he puts his sword away and finishes his gesture. But don't finish the combo, make sure you get a few hits in and dodge away from that attack he does where he slams the ground. Quickly get in your strike if you can. And that was very close, almost missed that, but that should have been a perfect dodge, or a move that you can definitely perfect dodge quite easily. He's going to do one more swipe, avoid that one. He's going to do the same, he's going to jump towards you, dodge. I will say the dodging in this game is a little bit weird, where sometimes, if you dodge early enough, like really early, you can get the perfect dodge, but it's so early that he'll still slam down and hit you if you're not careful. Although at other times you can dodge at the very last instant and you can get a perfect dodge. But for a lot of other enemies, even when you dodge at the very last moment, it doesn't give you a perfect dodge. It's the weirdest thing. The timing's a little bit strange, but for most games where that wouldn't work, it actually does work quite well for this. So after that brief little cutscene skip I did, he does a lot of the same moves, but he's just got some extra attacks on top of it. And you can't hit him normally now without doing a perfect dodge because, well, he's got that shield up. So I go ahead and use my elemental burst, just wear down his health little by little. And I stay away from him because I know if I try to hit him, he'll definitely do that. So instead of a shoulder check, he'll do a charge forward with the shield. Stay away from this. Dodge to the left when he comes at you. Keep as far away from that as you can. Otherwise, if you end up being close to him, what you want to do with that move is you want to dodge in behind him. And when he does that move where you've got several circles around you and you've got tiny gaps in between, that's hard to read sometimes. I got very lucky with that dodge before. So what you want to do then is just roll to the side and you should be okay. And so that's basically all the combos that you can see. And it's just a matter of repeating the process and trying not to get hit or getting killed. See, he's doing the move. Keep as far right as you can. Dodge from the left to the right if you can. See, that was lucky. I don't know how I avoided getting hit by that. But yeah, dodge to the side. Wait for him to slam down. So you can see the bosses, every boss in the game does the exact same attack patterns in the phases that they're in, one after the other. The only time they adapt is if you're attacking them when you're not in a perfect dodge, but it's not really a problem for the later bosses. Because bosses like this, like Boho, like Delia, and like Umbra, if you try to attack them when their barrier is destroyed, and you're not in a perfect dodge state, then your attacks will bounce off and they'll actually do damage to you. So it all works out quite well actually. I think it's a stupid mechanic, but how can they possibly deflect and bounce your attack off when they already had a barrier that could do that just fine? Maybe it's a desperation thing, I don't quite know. See, I tried to get my elemental burst up just a little bit there to finish it off and I couldn't, so I attacked and he bounced right off. So I thought I'd try using Min's elemental here just so I could try and combo mine together with hers, but ultimately no. Even at this point, at just level 2, your elemental attacks are still strong enough that you can outclass all of your other allies' abilities, so just stick with your own unless you have to break barriers and all that. And this will be the final stretch before we finish off the boss, and I haven't taken any damage so far, and I just did then, because if you get hit by those lightning attacks he does, then it stuns you and it can lead you into getting comboed. Thankfully I was far enough away that it wasn't a problem, and I should have gotten a perfect dodge on that, but I don't, so I just wait for the stingery move it does, dodge away, I've got the elemental burst up, and we can put an end to this. I just want to say I apologise for dragging on the video at the end there before. I just kind of got lost in a run there before. But you won't have to suffer through that again this time. So that's the end of this part, and I'll see you when the real challenge kicks in with Act 4.